roll call. Delegates, please turn on your camera. Please state your presence on this room. The delegate for India,
Present.
the delegate of Brazil,
Present.
the delegate of Germany,
Present.
the delegate of America,
Present and voting.
the delegate of China,
Present.
the delegate of Russian Federation,
Present and voting.
the delegate of Republic of France,
Present.
the delegate of Ukraine,
Present and voting.
the delegate of Belarus.
Present.
The procedures, please share your screen. Due to the time constraint, the last of the two, the main clauses, the chair will only recognize the one speaker and one point of information each. And please keep it as short. The house doesn't have much time. The the floor is now open to any delegate which just speaks. Are they in the house? The delegate project, you have been recognized.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry. Clause 7 states that it discourages Ukraine's NATO membership. However, this delegate is strongly against that, as we are the Security Council and the ones in charge of NATO memberships is technically NATO. So this delegate believes that it is not in the Security Council's jurisdiction to be able to control whether NATO says yes or no to Ukraine's NATO membership. This delegate acknowledges that there are many problems with Ukraine's membership and their which poses problems with qualifying. However, this delegate believes that that is up to NATO and not the Security Council, therefore is discouraging against voting for this clause. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate. Does the delegates accept any POIs?
This delegate is open to any and all.
Due to time scale, only one POIs will be accepted. The delegate of Belarus, you have been recognized.
Does Brazil not know about the general framework agreement for peace in Bosnia and Herzegovina, which where NATO was given the mandate by the UN to implement certain military aspects, and this is just one example of how the UN has control over NATO countries. And since a lot of NATO countries are part of the UN, this delegate believes that this clause is necessary and it is within UN jurisdiction. Plus, it also says discourages, and it's not actually forcing anything. Therefore, this delegate would like to know about the delegate of Brazil's idea on what the delegate of Belarus has said.
Thank you, delegate. And yes, this delegate is aware that many of NATO's members are in the Security Council, and therefore, in some way, the Security Council does have influence over NATO's any NATO decisions. However, once again, the NATO is a separate entity from the Security Council, and while the Security Council can make recommendations to NATO, ultimately the choice is up to NATO. And therefore, this delegate believes that this clause is inadequate and won't help with this conflict. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate. Does the delegate yield the floor back to chair to our delegate?
Back to the chair.
That is an order. Chair recommends to move on to the voting procedures. Are they in the any house?
Motion to move to voting procedure.
Are there any seconds? Are there any seconds?
Second.
Are there any objection?
Objection.
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 Denied. The House now move on to the voting procedure. The admin, please secure the door, and any delegate wish to vote for these resolutions, please raise your placard high.
2,
Any objection?
six,
Due to the failing of the over majority, the clauses did not pass. Clause is not in order. The House now discuss about the 9A clauses on the second resolution. Are there any House which speaks against or vote for these clauses? The delegate of Belarus, you have been recognized.
Honorable chairs, fellow delegates, and most esteemed guests. This delegate believes that the sanctions that have been imposed on Russia has a lot of consequences and a lot of negative impacts on the world in general. And since Russia is one of the biggest energy sources in European society, and they actually provide Belarus and other bordering nations a lot of energy, and is also one of the biggest traders in European society. The sanctions have created different consequences, such as economic instability and the price of stocks fluctuating. And this delegate believes that it is important to condemn these sanctions and prevent as much sanctioning as possible in the upcoming days, as it is important to stabilize the economy, the world economy, and it is important for other countries, not only for Russia. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate. Does the delegate accept any POIs?
Any and all.
The delegate will open himself to any POIs, but time constraints, he's going to only accept one POIs. The delegate of Germany, you have been recognized.
So thank you for the delegate of Belarus. So the delegate of Germany would like the delegate of Belarus to clarify the consequences of the sanctions that have been imposed on Russia, like about the aerospace sector. Like, how does it affect Belarus and other Western Europe countries?
About the aerospace sector, Russia is one of the powerhouses in the world, along with the US. And in order to keep the US's power in check, Russia has an aerospace sector, and so does the US. And these two major powerhouses check each other's power so that no one nation becomes superior. And to answer the question about further consequences, as we can already see, the sanctions have created fluctuation in the stocks and the prices of certain materials such as oil and gas, petroleum, and different energy sources from Russia are crucial in supplying countries such as Belarus for their energy. And without this energy, Belarus's condition would be very detrimental and serious. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate. Does the delegate yield the floor back to chair or the delegate?
To the delegate of Russia.
Delegate of Russia, do you
The
accept?
delegate accepts the yield.
Okay, delegates, you may speak.
Delegates, the delegate of Russia would once again like to re-emphasize the fact that the sanctions that have been placed on Russia and other similar countries such as Belarus are uncalled for and are certainly having a devastating repercussions all across the globe. Now, to further clarify some of the points that have been made, the delegate Russia will further elaborate upon the consequences that are being placed on the International Space Station. Now, stated by the space chief of Russia, considering Russia's paramount input into the International Space Stations, including its orbit positions, etc., without the funding and with these sanctions, there is a possibility that the International Space Station will crash down. And since the International Space Station does not revolve around Russia, the space station has a huge chance of crashing into Europe, China, India, etc. Hence, Russia will not be the country that will be affected here. The countries that will be affected are the countries that are in the path of these International Space Station's orbit. And with the sanctions that are being imposed, the International Space Station has a large chance of crashing and causing devastating repercussions, not in terms of the economy, but also to people's human rights when it does happen. Moreover, the delegate would like to reemphasize the fact that the sanctions that have been imposed on Russia and Belarus are uncalled for. Ukraine in the past has committed several crimes and has transgressed numerous human rights. Even yesterday, the UK Mail has shown how the Ukrainian government is full of Nazis, as shown with an image and the symbol of a wolf angel, which is a symbol that represents Nazism. Moreover, the Ukrainian government is clearly unsuitable to join NATO, and as indicated by the fact that they have a hugely authoritarian government that even prohibits many LGBTQ rights, in addition to violating the rights of intersex people. Moreover, the delegate would once again like to reemphasize the fact that Ukraine has no jurisdiction in joining NATO because of the fact that of the European Bill of 2010, which prohibits them from doing so. In addition to the fact that Ukraine as a whole is still very much authoritarian, much like Hungary or Russia, which is not at all aligned with the overall democracy of the NATO organization. Hence, due to the rationale, the delegate of Russia believes that all the sanctions that have been imposed on Russia so far and other countries such as Belarus have been completely uncalled for and are unjustified. Thank you.
To the kind countries, no POIs. The chair highly encouraged the delegates to motion to the move on to the previous question. Are there any motions?
Motion to move to previous question.
Are there any seconds?
Second.
Second.
Are there any objection?
Objection.
Denied. The House now move on to the voting procedures. The admin, please secure the door. Any delegate wish to vote for this resolution, vote for this clause, please raise your placard high.
3, 4.
Any objection?
Three.
This is a miscount. The House now conducts the voting procedure again. Please raise your placards if your delegate, your countries, vote for this clause.
4.
Any objection for this clause?
Three again. There
Does-
might be unpresent. I'm not sure. Now change to 4. However, that's still one delegate missing.
Who's the one delegate?
We're
What
missing
do you mean?
delegate of United States of America.
So United States has the Wi-Fi issue, right?
Yeah, it's still 4-4 though, so I'm not sure how you're gonna decide.
Because it is not a supermajority, we will let this clause pass.
PY to the chair.
Yes,
Yes.
granted.
This delegate would like to change her vote.
Okay, then due to the majority, this clause passes. And the House now move on to the voting procedure for the draft resolution as a whole.
Inquiry to chair.
Granted.
Can this delegate make his final main submitter wrapping up speech?
Due to the kindness constraint, denied. Sorry. The prosecutor or Hatcher, are you ready to present the whole draft resolution? Thank you. The House now move on to the voting procedure for the second draft resolutions. The any delegate wish to vote for these resolutions, please raise your placard high.
It also seems like USA is back, so you might want to restart the procedure.
Oh, sorry, Chair. The whole electricity got cut off.
No worries, it is okay. Any delegates wish to object these resolutions, please raise your placard high.
Object?
Object, yeah.
1, 2.
Any delegate wish to abstain?
1, 2.
Since this is not a supermajority, the resolutions did not pass. Clap is not in order.
Can the deputy chair clarify on the votings?
Since this is not a supermajority,
The numbers for the votings.
oh, for this resolutions, 2 abstain and 3 against.
Deputy chair. Would you also like to yield the chair rights?
Apologies, the chair Hugh yield the chair right to Chair Alvin.
Accepted. We are now
Chair,
at the
Chair.
last. Excuse me? Yes,
Chair,
accepted.
would it be possible to send the link to that resolution?
Precisely the last resolution or the second resolution?
The last one.
The last resolution.
Okay, thank you.
Last resolution. Can the head chair do so? Thank you, head chair. And to clarify, all amendments will go to the head chair. Thank you for that. We are now at the last hour of the conference. Today, lastly, we will debate on the issue of the Ukrainian-Russian border conflict resolution submitted by the United States of America. May the main submitter rise to the podium and read out the operative clauses, excluding all the subclauses.
Thank you, Chair. Clause 1, calling nations to provide support to Ukraine in terms of resources and facilities. Clause 2 calls upon members of NATO to assist Ukraine in joining the alliance. Clause 3, ensuring a safe pathway for Ukrainian civilians wishing to find safety through evacuation through such means but not limited to. Clause 4, imposes sanctions on Russia in such ways but not limited to. Clause 5, set up agreements between Ukraine and Russia under these conditions, such as but not limited to. Clause 6, affirming Russia and the international community that all sanctions imposed on Russia during the Ukraine-Russia conflict of 2022 will be lifted if Russia removes all of its military from Ukraine and reestablishes regional peace. Clause 7, calls for medical assistance from organizations to help with the health crisis in Ukraine, emphasizing on the necessity of these medical teams' freedom of movements, such as but not limited to. Clause 8, emphasizing on Russia to maintain civilians' livelihood in occupied territories in such ways but not limited to.
Thank you, delegates. The House will now debate on the first clause. The chair will only allocate 5 minutes for this clause due to time constraints. May the main submitter begin their opening remarks on the first clause.
Thank you, Chair. So our resolution is to seek international peace, especially in Ukraine, by adding more and more sanctions to Russia in order to stop them from having additional military supplies. Since sanctions will not create a big impact on Russia and Belarus in short term, this delegate believes that the most harsh sanctions should be implemented to at least deter the Russian army's attack. The financial losses of neutral countries will be held by the United States to rebuild its economy. The sanctions will be removed when the Russian Belarus leaves the land of Ukraine. This resolution also seeks for medical help from international organizations and other private organizations for the vulnerable soldiers, including the Russian soldiers, since the Russian soldiers are just following the orders of the superiors. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Is the delegate accepting any POIs?
Yeah, any and all.
The delegate has opened himself to any POIs. Are there any in the House? Delegate of Russia and Brazil, you have now accepted in that order.
How does the delegate of the US justify this clause when considering the fact that the delegate is directly encouraging Ukraine to engage in warfare and the US is directly supporting and funding Ukraine, when in reality, Ukraine has caused numerous human rights transgressions ranging from bombing their own people, such as in the Alley of Angels, or contributing to killing their own people, such as in the War of Donbass, where the Ukrainian government blatantly transgressed human rights.
Wait, oh, sorry, Chair, the delegate's Wi-Fi lag. Can the delegate of Russia please repeat the POI?
Can the delegate of Russia repeat his question?
How does the delegate of US justify this clause, justify supporting Ukraine in war in this conflict, when considering the fact that Ukraine in the past has bombed their own people, such as in the Alley of Angels, burned protesters for disagreeing with the government, such as in the case of the 2014 Odessa fire, and even supported Nazism, as indicated by a picture as recent as yesterday?
So, the justification of the US helping Ukraine bombing their own citizens is that first, those citizens in the Donbas region were getting military support from the Russian soldiers, which are meant for them to attack the innocent lives in Donbas region. And so if the Ukrainians did not really bomb the place, then more innocent lives would have been killed. And for the burning protesters, it's not really confirmed that it happened in the order of the Ukrainian government. Yeah, so it's
denied to do time constraint.
Okay. Clause subclause A or subclause II of subclause A states for nations to provide support, and it includes military bases. Does it mean that other nations would be building military bases in Ukraine? And if so, will those military bases be of that nation, or will it be a Ukrainian military base?
The subclause A, subclause II means the countries we're asking countries to support Ukraine in terms of resources for them to build their own military base. Yeah, so it'll be owned and controlled by the Ukrainian government.
Motion to extend POI session.
Denied due to time constraint. Would the delegate of USA yield the floor back to the chair or to another delegate?
Back to the chair.
That is in order. The House is now open to any delegates wishing to speak on this issue, for or against. The chair will only entertain one delegate due to time constraint. Delegate Russia, you have been recognized.
Delegates, in many ways, this clause is simply flawed and is also advocating for support for a country that should not be supported during wartime. The delegate of Russia has nothing against the citizens themselves. So Russia wholeheartedly agrees that the citizens themselves should be supported through humanitarian aid and such. However, to provide weapons, to provide military to a government that directly supports Nazis, to a government that's been oppressing their people, is quite simply ridiculous. The delegate also believes that establishing military bases and even provide and even asking nations to provide civilians who are willing to fight against Russia is borderline close to sending in troops. And that is a severe international transgression. And the delegate of Russia would like to once again reaffirm the fact that sending in troops, calling nations to sending civilians is quite pretty much very, very similar to a point of there being almost no distinct disparity in actually sending in troops. So which just threatens the sovereignty of Russia in addition to threatening the international laws. Moreover, the delegate of Russia would once again like to reaffirm the fact that Ukraine should, as a country, should not be supported, as Ukraine is itself also very flawed. And this is just quite simply hypocritical. The US has been proclaiming and bashing Russia for somehow causing global destruction and stuff. But this is indeed not the case. To use an analogy, this is the equivalent of Ariana Grande and Justin Bieber's song during the COVID-19 pandemic when they're driving while other people are suffering. This is just like that. This is just hypocritical, and this is just insanely, confoundingly illogical at all in all senses of manner. Therefore, the delegate of Russia would once again like to reaffirm the hypocrisy of this situation and would like to re-accentuate the fact that the countries such as the US should not be providing weapons, nor should they be encouraging civilians to fight against Russia, which is borderline close to sending in troops. Thank you.
The delegate, is the delegate wishing to accept any POIs? The chair will only accept one POI due to time constraints. Are there any in the House? Delegate of Germany, you have been recognized.
The delegate of Germany, I would like to ask the delegate of Russia, so that the delegate of Russia said that the clause 1 had violated severe international law. So can the delegate of Russia name the law that the clause have violated, and like exactly which party, which international organization had proposed that law?
Delegates, considering the fact that Ukraine is not in NATO, if any of the NATO countries were to send in troops to fight against Russian soldiers, that is quite simply the equivalent of declaring war on Russia, and Russia would act accordingly. Russia has already expressed the country's willingness to even use and deploy certain types of weapons when necessary. And if any countries were to deploy troops or do anything that's equivalent of doing so, Russia would take the necessary measures to bring about the right repercussions. Thank you.
Thank you. Would the delegate of Russia like to give the floor back to the chair or to another delegate?
The delegate would like to yield back to the chair, please.
That is in order. As the time ran out for the debate session discussing clause 1, the chair would highly recommend all delegates to either place a motion to extend debate time or a motion to the previous question.
Motion to move to previous question.
Seconds.
Second.
Objections.
Objection.
Reason towards the objection.
Ukraine wants to say the reason why he support this this clause, and since he thinks that this current conversation needs to be more nuanced and diverse.
Unjustified. Now the House will now go into voting procedure. Admin staff, please secure the doors and get into voting procedure. Delegates wishing to vote for this clause, please raise your placards. Admin.
6-4, 3 against.
As there are 6, 4, and 3 against, this clause passes. Clapping is in order. We'll now move on to the second clause of the resolution submitted by the United States. May the main submitter rise to the podium and give their opening remarks.
Inquiry to chair.
Yes,
Does the main submitter give their opening speech for every single clause?
yes, that is by the rule.
Okay.
Okay, so clause 2 calls upon members of NATO to assist Ukraine in joining a NATO alliance. This is because, first of all, Ukraine is a free country, and that which means that Ukraine has its own right to choose its own future and choose its own organization to join in. And Russia has absolutely no right on whether to restrict Ukraine from joining other organizations. And since Ukraine is currently in war with Russia and Belarus, Ukraine wants peace to come to their country, and this delegate thinks that NATO is the best organization for Ukraine to seek for peace. So yeah.
Thank you, delegate. Is the delegate open to any POIs?
Any and all.
The delegate has opened himself to any and all POIs. Are there any in the House? Belarus, Russia, you have been recognized in that order.
This delegate would like to ask the delegate of USA, in what way is Belarus part of the war directly?
Troops. So attacks in Ukraine are being done in 3 directions: the north, east, and the sea, south. And those troops coming from the north is coming from Belarus, and it seems that Belarus is
Request for clarification.
Belarus is
Please
allowing.
ask that directly to the chair.
Request for follow-up.
Would the delegate of USA finish his reply first?
Yes. That's all. Thank you, Chair. So the Belarus government is allowing Russian troops to go through Belarus and attack Ukraine from the north, which makes Ukraine even much harder to defend themselves. And this can be seen as helping Russia.
A request for follow-up.
Accepted.
Apologies, delegate of United States. This delegate did not know that the delegate of USA was still going. However, this delegate would like to express that Belarus itself is actually not at war with Ukraine itself. It is just supporting the country of Russia, and the troops that are coming from Belarus are not actually Belarus troops. Therefore, this delegate would like to know about how the USA views Belarus as in the war.
Also, thank you for your POI. So the view of the USA on Belarus is that strategy in wars are very important, and by letting Russian troops go through Belarus and attack Kiev right away, because Kiev is super close with Belarus, so allowing the Russian troops to trespass Belarus and attack from the north seems like the Belarus is making Ukraine much more difficult to defend Russia, because as the delegate said before, the attacks are being done in 3 directions. So the USA thinks that Belarus is helping the troops of Russia to conquer Ukraine.
Ever since 2003, the United States of America, specifically during the time of the Bush administration, has stated that Ukraine is eligible to join the NATO organization. However, this is indeed not the case, and there are numerous flaws that the US fails to acknowledge, such as the fact that Ukraine has one of the highest politically corrupt scores in the world. Ukraine is still in many ways still very authoritarian, and the fact that Ukraine in 2010 passed a bill to prevent, which states that Ukraine is not allowed to join any military blocs. Hence, how does the United States of America justify in supporting Ukraine in joining the NATO alliance when in many ways Ukraine fails to meet many of the requirements?
The USA's view on Ukraine joining NATO has changed a little bit since, as the delegate of Russia said, that's from 2003. And the requirement for Ukraine to joining NATO is not, it's not like, sorry, apologies. It's not required for Ukraine to be a democratic country or have a not corrupted government in order to join NATO. So since the USA wants world peace, the US supports Ukraine in joining NATO. And the democracy that the delegate of Russia just mentioned is not really for NATO, but it's a requirement for Ukraine in joining EU. And that's irrelevant to this clause.
Follow up?
Denied due to time constraint. Thank you, delegate. Would the delegate like to give the floor back to the chair or to another delegate?
Back to the chair, please.
The House is now once again open to all delegates wishing to speak for or against this clause. Are there any in the House?
Motion to move the previous question.
Motion has been suggested. Seconds?
Second.
Objections?
Objection.
Motion has been denied. The delegate delegate of Belarus, you have been recognized.
Honorable chairs, fellow delegates, and most esteemed guests, this delegate would like to go against this clause, as NATO in the beginning was actually made to go against the Soviet communist powers that were present after World War II. However, as now the Soviet Union has now collapsed and now these different countries are not necessarily communist, there's no need for NATO in the world. And Ukraine does not fit the requirements to go inside NATO, and Ukraine's joining of NATO will lead to an imbalance of power in Europe, as the eastern side, which is Russia, will be overwhelmed with neighbors who are NATO members, which will create a difficult situation for Russia, making the balance of power impossible. Russia and the USA are both big powers, and the USA holds the power in NATO. However, this delegate believes that to ensure peace in Europe, countries such as Ukraine, which are bordering between the Eastern and Western Europe, they should not be in NATO because it would create a difficult situation for the balance. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate. Does the delegate accept any POIs?
Any and all.
The delegate has opened himself to any and all POIs. Due to time constraints, the chair will only be entertaining one POI. Delegate of Ukraine, you have been recognized.
The delegate of Ukraine would like to say that to counter some arguments made by the delegate of Belarus and Russia, that NATO doesn't really require democratic countries, such as in the case of Turkey, that is not really democratic or free, but still a part of NATO. So therefore, it will be very insufficient to use that as a case. Second of all, Ukraine, even though it's wish to join NATO, the people of Ukraine, it does also recognize some of the problem with it. That's why Ukraine has made a lot of progress, even be it slowly, to make it less corrupt in all form of its government, and even with the European integration policy, even though it doesn't really allow Ukraine to join NATO, it does allow military cooperation, which is something that Ukraine guarantee that Russia is very against that. And finally, yeah, no, that's it. Yeah, thank you.
Can the chair ask the delegate of Ukraine to phrase that in a question form?
The delegate of Ukraine rephrase his statement into a question.
Oh, the delegate of Ukraine is not aware that we're in a POI. Can the chair tell the Ukraine what POI we're arguing about?
The delegate of Belarus just has spoken about the second clause. Would the delegate like to recall his POI?
The delegate of Ukraine, I want to ask about the delegate of Belarus. What authority does the Security Council has to prevent Ukraine from joining NATO, especially?
I think delegate of Belarus believes that Security Council has full authority to take this action to prevent Ukraine from joining NATO. First, because NATO actually has the European integration bill, which actually prevents Ukraine from joining the NATO alliance. And this delegate believes that the Security Council's main objective is to maintain peace within different countries and make productive alliances between countries and improve failing relationships such as the one with Ukraine and Russia. And this delegate believes that preventing Ukraine from joining NATO will increase the relationship between the Russian and the Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate. Denied due to time constraints. Thank you, delegate. Would the delegate like to yield the floor back to the chair or to another delegate?
To the delegate of Russia.
That is not in order due to time constraints. The chair highly recommends delegates to put forward a motion to the previous question. Is there any motion at hand?
Motion to extend debate time.
Motion to previous question.
Would the delegate of Russia explain why he wishes to extend debate time?
The delegate of Russia would further like to elaborate on why in many ways Ukraine is ineligible to join the NATO organization. There are other criteria that Ukraine fails to meet. For instance, one of the main criteria is the fact that there needs to be an unanimous agreement to enable Ukraine to join NATO. However, that has not been the case. Countries, chief amongst them, such as Italy, France, and Germany in the past have refused to accept Ukraine's membership. Hence, in addition to this, there are also other factors that
recognized. The delegate of Russia, you'll have 3 minutes for your speech and 1 POI. The time will start now.
Delegates as a whole, many delegates seem to be confused on the exact eligibilities of Ukraine and whether or not Ukraine itself can actually be considered to join NATO or not. However, in many cases, there are numerous requirements that Ukraine fails to meet. For instance, as mentioned before, Ukraine has a high political corruption score. Now, while that is not an explicit a metric of score that needs to be met, the NATO organization does mention that there needs to be political stability, which Ukraine obviously lacks. Therefore, Ukraine is currently very unsuitable to join NATO as a whole. Moreover, going back on Ukraine's authoritarian organization, the delegate of Russia fully believes that Ukraine is unfit to join NATO as a whole due to the disparity in ideologies, whereas Ukraine is considered to be more of an authoritarian country. Other NATO countries are more democratic. And while that is not an explicit requirement, many countries have accredited this reason as one of the main rationales that prevents Ukraine from joining. Moreover, the delegate would once again like to reemphasize the fact that in order for a membership to be accepted, there needs to be unanimous agreement, which there has not been. Countries such as Italy, France, Germany have all previously said no to Ukraine's membership, meaning that Ukraine is in no way, shape, or form eligible to join NATO as a whole. And the delegate of Russia once again like to reemphasize the fact that the U.S. government has simply been spreading misinformation about this for a very long time. Ever since 2003, the U.S. with the Bush administration has stated that Ukraine can join NATO, which when it was really not the case. Another example of this is Donald Trump, who has recently stated back in 2016 that Brazil can somehow join NATO, which is most certainly not the case. For years, the US has been spreading false information about which countries can join NATO. And for this reason, the main rationale for this conflict is being caused by US's false information, false propaganda about which countries can join NATO and which cannot. And this is causing a huge issue right now. And a lot of these issues can be accredited to the US's failures to proficiently and sufficiently address the exact requirements of NATO membership. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. POIs will be denied due to time constraints. Time has elapsed on the open debate for Clause 2. Are there any motions on the House?
Motion to move to voting procedure.
Seconds?
Seconds.
Objections? We'll now move into voting procedures. Stand, please secure the doors and get into voting procedures. Delegates wishing to vote for this clause, please raise your placards. Delegates wishing to vote against this clause, please raise your placards.
3, 4, 4, 4, 5 against.
As there are 4 for and 5 against, this clause does not pass. We'll now debate on the third clause of this resolution. May the main statement rise to the podium and state their opening speech. Please limit this as we are running out of time.
Okay. Clause 3, ensuring a safe pathway for Ukrainian civilians wishing to find safety through evacuation through such means but not limited to the countries. This delegate will not say everything due to time limit. But to expand more on this, this is about Ukrainian innocent civilians who are still in the battlefield living there. Like, this is for them to move out of Ukraine safely, and this already has been like in the process of negotiating with Ukraine and Russia. So about taking out innocent civilians. So yeah, please vote for this.
Thank you, Delegate. Is the delegate open to any POIs?
Any and all.
The delegates open himself to any and all POIs. The chair will only be entertaining 1 POIs. Are there any in the House? Delegate of Russia, you have been recognized.
The delegate has specified the countries Russia and Belarus in the list of countries, in the list of neighboring countries that should allow pathways for Ukrainian civilians. However, both Russia and Ukraine have so far made it clear that refugees from Ukraine are not welcomed. So therefore, why did the U.S. deem it necessary to list such countries when the countries themselves have made it explicitly clear that refugees will not be tolerated?
Okay, so the reason why, according to Vladimir Putin, according to Vladimir Putin, his reason for declaring war against Ukraine was to secure the people of the LPR and the DPR, which is Donetsk and Luhansk. And Putin has been keep saying that the Ukrainian civilians or the Ukrainian citizens or like the brothers of Russia and Belarus, because we are all from Kiev, Rus, it's the same ethnicity. So USA is asking for Russia and Belarus to still accept refugees because they have nothing to do with this war crisis, and they have a right to live. Thank you.
Denied due to time constraints. Thank you, delegate. Would the delegate like to either refer back to the chair or to another delegate?
To Ukraine.
Does the delegate of Ukraine accept this yield?
Accept. The delegate of Ukraine want to state that both Russia and Belarus is already accepting refugees from Ukraine. To be precise, about 53,000 people have arrived in Russia and about 300 people arrived in Belarus. So this is just create safer pathways for them to find safety, because the thing about refugees that they go to the nearest place they live, not exactly political enemies, and that Russia had invaded Ukraine, so it also bears some responsibility to ensure that this conflict minimize the casualty damage as much as possible.
Thank you, delegates. Due to time constraints, the chair will not accept any POIs. Will the delegate like to defer back to the chair or to another delegate?
Back to the chair, please.
That is in order.
Motion to move into amendment time.
It has been already recognized. The chair will now move into the amendment submitted by Belarus. Deputy Chair, would you like to change the slides? Thank you. Requesting to strike subclause B of clause 3. Due to time constraints, we will only be entertaining Belarus's speech on this amendment.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable chairs, fellow delegates, and most esteemed guests. The delegate of Belarus would like to strike the subclause B of clause 3 because it is very unnecessary and has no relevance to the conflict between Ukraine and Russia. It reads about requesting UN peacekeepers stationed and ICC on each path to ensure no violation of international local laws, such as but not limited to. However, this is very irrelevant, as this is not about the problem that is happening in this situation. And this delegate believes that already all of these people have been evacuated. Therefore, this clause will not be needed. Furthermore, this delegate believes that it is not the UN who should be doing this. Non-profitable organizations who should be actively working on this, as the UN has the UN should be working on bigger problems such as the actual tension between Russia and Ukraine.
Thank you, delegates. Due to time constraints, we will move directly into voting procedure of this amendments. That please get into voting procedure. Delegates wishing to vote for this amendment, please raise your placards. Delegates wishing to vote against this amendment, please raise your placards. Admin.
3, 4, 6 against.
There are 3 votes for and 6 votes against. This amendment does not pass. We will now move straight into voting procedure of clause 3. Admin staff, please secure the doors and get into voting procedure. We will now vote on clause 3. Delegates wishing to vote for this clause, please raise your placards. Delegates wishing to vote against this clause, please raise your placards.
7, 4, 2 against.
As there are 7 for and 2 against, this clause passes. Clapping is in order. We'll now move into the 4th clause of this resolution. May the main senator concisely explain their position on clause 4.
Thank you, Chair. So clause 4 is about imposing sanctions on Russia, such as economic sanctions, port sanctions, diplomatic sanctions, and sanctions of individuals, such as Vladimir Putin, Russian oligarchs, and government officials. This is for Russia to be economically weakened so that Russia would not be able to buy more weapons in attacking Ukraine. And for sports sanctions and sanctions for like the Russian oligarchs is to make the Russian citizens have like rebel against the Russian government who's declaring war on Ukraine. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, delegate. Is the delegate open to any POIs?
Oh, any and all.
The delegate has opened himself to any POIs. The chair will only be accepting one POI. Delegate of Brazil, you have been recognized. Delegate of Brazil, you have been recognized.
Thank you, Chair. For clause 4, subclause A, B, C, and D, those have already been carried out and have passed and have passed a while back already. These sanctions have already affected the nations. Therefore, what is the purpose of including it in this resolution as it has already been implemented?
No, yeah, good question. Thank you, Delegate of Brazil. So this clause is to even make the sanctions on Russia like even more harsh, because the USA and other EU countries has been is only restricting 80% of the Russian banks, and so this clause is encouraging the countries to 100% restrict Russian banks from transacting with the Western countries' banks. And for sports sanction, it's not that every Russian national team is removed from participating in international sports events. So this clause is asking for the removal of Russian national teams in international events.
Thank you, delegates. Is the delegate wishing to give the floor back to the chair or to another delegate?
Back to the chair.
That is in order. Due to time constraints, we will only accepting one more speaker for clause 4 and no more POIs. Delegate of India, you have been recognized.
Thank you, Chair. The delegate for the Republic of India wishes to be staunchly against this clause, as financial sanctions harm diplomatic activity in the area. Financial sanctions lower the way for the Russian Federation and Republic of Belarus to be out and have freedom. The citizens of other countries, of other nationals, are affected by these financial sanctions, which the delegate for the USA has failed to recognize. Therefore, this clause fails to recognize the livelihoods of normal citizens that are not in any part affiliated with the conflict, and therefore this clause is inappropriate for the Republic of India. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate. Would the delegate like to yield the floor back to the chair to honor the delegate?
To the chair, please.
That is an order. Due to time constraints, the delegate or the chair would like the delegate to place a motion to previous question. Is there any in the house?
Motion to move the previous question.
Seconds?
Second.
Objections? We will now move into voting procedure. Amistad, please secure the doors and get into voting procedure. Delegates wishing to vote for this clause, please raise your placard. Delegates wishing to vote against this clause, please raise your placard.
4 for, 5 against.
As there are 4 for and 5 against, this clause does not pass. Clapping is not in order. We will now debate on the 5th clause of this resolution. May the main submitter concisely expand their position on this 5th clause.
Okay. So for clause 5, the set of agreements between Ukraine and Russia under these conditions, such as but not limited to acknowledging both of the countries' concerns on the war crisis that is currently happening, such as Ukraine is trying to bring back the Budapest Memorandum that has been signed in the 1990s, and Russia is trying to stop Ukraine from joining NATO. So both of the countries, so this clause is asking both of the countries to stop the war and have peaceful negotiations while listening to each other's concerns and acknowledging it. Thank you.
Thank you, delegates. Due to time constraints, the chair will not entertain any POIs. And as well as due to time constraints, the chair will only entertain one speech for this clause. Are there any in the House? Delegate of Russia, you have been recognized.
The delegate of Russia would like to state the fact that this clause assumes many of the intentions of Russia and other countries, yet fails to acknowledge them properly. Russia has never stated their interest in joining NATO, so it's just quite confounding why this is mentioned at all. And moreover, the clause A5 has stated that the government will condemn NATO-affiliating extreme far-right groups in Ukraine. However, Nazi-affiliated groups have existed even before this whole conflict started. Nazi groups having very prevalent in not only the Ukrainian citizens themselves, but also in the Ukrainian government. The Ukrainian government, and by extension, the Ukrainian army, have displayed Nazi-like characteristics in many ways, and therefore the delegate struggles to see how this issue can be resolved by simply condemning them. Moreover, the delegate of Russia would like to address clause B, which states that Russia should not use Ukraine's internal affairs as an excuse to invade Ukraine. However, there are instances where when there are enough human rights transgressions and when war is seen as something that can lead to better human rights results, an invasion, sort of a military operation, can be seen to be justifiable. In this case, Russia is simply launching a military operation to ensure that human rights will be met in the future. At this current state, human rights transgressions are highly prevalent and is seen in almost all parts of the nation. Therefore, Russia is simply launching a military operation to ensure that there is freedom, to ensure that there is denazification, to ensure that the Ukrainian government is held accountable for their egregious actions. Moreover, the delegate will once again like to re-emphasize the fact that the Ukraine in many ways is eligible to join many of these alliances, and especially considering their bills such as the European integration bill, which directly states that Ukraine is not allowed to join any blocs, military blocs. Ukraine should not be able to join these blocs in any shape or form. Ukraine has previously stated that Ukraine can join because the integration bill states that Ukraine can make alliances. And while alliances can be fine, such as how Ukraine is currently unofficially alliance with NATO, directly joining NATO is not. Therefore, the delegate of Russia would once again like to point out the numerous flaws in this clause, and would like to highly encourage delegates to vote against this clause. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate. The delegate of Russia has just mentioned a veto for clause 5 as a whole. We'll now move into P9 nations meeting about the veto of Russia. Steph, can you create a breakout room for the P9 nations? Thank you.
Sorry, Chair, point of intact something.
Yes.
I think the grammar in clause, sorry, can the Chair return to the slide of the debating clause?
Clause 5?
No, the current debating clause.
The amendment.
Yeah, sorry. No, the clause.
The clause. The clause 5.
No, yes, clause 5. So the delegate of Ukraine thinks that subclause A, subclause 1 has been some wrong in grammatic. It's supposed to agree to be more conservative with Russia when it comes to joining military alliance with NATO.
Will be discussed later. Can we start the P9 Nations meeting first.
Yes.
I have opened it up for you to choose, so please go to room 2 instead, just for it to be faster. And as always, Belarus and Ukraine, stay here.
Hi.
Germany, if you can hear me, please go to room 2.
Admin. The delegate of Ukraine thinks that there's some incorrect grammatical order that could result in wrong translation of meaning in clause 5. Can the admin like change, correct the clause?
Do I need to make an amendment for that? Like, should I just change it myself?
I don't, the delegate of Ukraine doesn't really know the legal process of this.
I think you might have to bring it up officially once the chairs come back.
Okay.
Since it's a grammatical error, most likely it will be approved.
Okay. To the deputy chair or what chair?
Procedural chair.
Due to time constraints, we will directly move into voting procedure of clause 5. Deputy Chair, would you like to share the slides for clause 5? Deputy Chair? Thank you. We'll directly move into voting procedure of clause 5. Ms. Sapp, please secure the doors and get into voting procedure. Delegates wishing to vote for this clause, please raise your placards. Delegates wishing to vote against this clause, please raise your placards. Amen.
Apologies, I was having Wi-Fi issues. 5-4 against.
5-4 and 4 against this resolution. This clause passes. We'll now move into clause 6 of this resolution. The chair will only accept one speaker, and the main summary does not have to speak. Are there any delegates wishing to speak for clause 6 in the House? Delegate of India, you have been recognized. Please make your speech very concise.
The Republic of India is in full agreement with this clause, as it is affirming that the sanctions on Russia will be all lifted and removed and disabled, and hopefully that will turn for greater for the global economy and our citizens. Thank you.
The delegates' PRIs will not be accepted due to time constraints. Is there a motion on the House to move to the previous question?
A motion to move to the previous question.
Seconds?
Second.
Objections? As there are no objections, we will now move into voting procedures of clause 6. Ms. Sapp, please secure the doors and get into voting procedure. Delegates wishing to vote for this clause, please raise your placards. Delegates wishing to vote against this clause, please raise your placards. As there are 8 votes for and 1 vote against, this clause passes. We'll now move straight into the 7th clause of this resolution. Due to time constraints, the chair will only be entertaining one speaker for this clause. Are there any in the House? Delegate of Russia, you have been recognized. Please make it concise.
To put it simply, the delegate believes that this clause is simply superfluous and it's not necessary and it's highly redundant. The only thing that the clause accomplishes is list some random health organizations without giving out a detailed plan or any substantial plan of action at all. Therefore, the delegate believes that asking for medical assistance and simply naming all these organizations is not at all constructive, nor is it useful, considering the fact that in the past that there have been other clauses that have been able to sufficiently address this issue in a better form. Thank you.
Thank you, delegates. There will be no POIs accepted. As due to time constraints, is there a motion to move to the previous question?
Motion to move the previous question.
Seconds?
Second.
Objections? As there are no objections, we will move directly into voting procedures of clause 7. Admin staff, please close the doors and get into voting procedures. Delegates wishing to vote for this clause, please raise your placards. Delegates wishing to vote against this clause, please raise your placards.
6-4, 2 against.
As there are 6 for and 2 against, this clause passes. Now we'll move into the 8th clause of this resolution. The chair will only be entertaining one speaker for this clause. Are there any in the House? Delegate Brazil, you are being recognized.
Thank you, Chair. This delegate is confused on the contents of clause 8 as this delegate can't tell if it refers to the current conflict or in general. With the ongoing conflict, Russia now occupies Kherson. Will this clause apply there, and how will it be implemented during this current crisis, considering how volatile and dangerous it is for people? Thank you.
Due to time constraints, the chair will not be accepting any POIs. Are there any motion in the House?
Motion to move to previous question.
Seconds?
Second.
Objections? As there are none, we'll move directly into voting procedure. Admin said, please secure the doors and get into voting procedure. Delegates wishing to vote for this resolution, please raise your placards. Delegates wishing to vote against this resolution, please raise your placards.
5, 4, 3 against.
As there are 5, 4, and 3 against, this resolution, this clause passes. We will now move into the last clause of this resolution. The chair will only be entertaining one speaker due to time constraints. Are there any in the House?
POI to the chair.
Yes.
And the delegate of Ukraine, remember that the House already went through a similar clause.
That is not true. Delegate of Belarus, you have been recognized. Please make it concise, because we are
Honorable
going over
Chairs,
time.
fellow delegates, and most esteemed guests, as most delegate have already recognized by now, this clause is very redundant to the one before, specifically clause 6. It is exactly the same clause. Therefore, this delegate believes that
Point of intervention go to the chair.
Yes.
In the official document, there's only 8 clauses. And the clause 9 is not really in the original document. So the delegate of Ukraine is very confused.
Then the last, as the official document does not consist the last 9th clause, we will remove this from the entire resolution as a whole. Now we'll move straight into voting procedure of the resolution as a whole. Amisa, please secure the doors and get into voting procedure. Delegates wishing to vote for this resolution as a whole, please raise your placards. Delegates wishing to vote against this resolution as a whole, please raise your placards. Delegates wishing to abstain.
Or 3 against, 2 abstain.
As there are 3, 4, and 3 against and 4 abstaining, this resolution does not pass as a whole. Clapping is not in order. Thank you, delegates.
A point of POI to the chair.
Yes.
The delegate doesn't see the US in this call.
Even though US is not here, it will not be considered a supermajority. Thank you, delegates. We have ended today's conference, going through all 3 resolutions, with the first 2 passing and the last one failing. The delegate, the procedural chair would like to yield the chairing rights to the head chair.
Thank you, procedural chair. Delegate Russia, do you have anything to say?
The delegate believes that only one resolution passed.
Yes.
First one. Yes.
Yes, that is correct. The first resolution passed. The second and third, unfortunately, did not pass. Congratulations, guys. Your conference is officially over. Yeah, clapping is definitely in order. We still have about 10 minutes left of our conference, and we wanted to end it off by showing some highlights of the session through giving superlatives. So Admin, would you like to share screen for the superlatives? Yeah.
Okay. Done. Wait. Don't look at don't look at my tabs. Do you see anything?
Yeah, you're showing Brazil slide.
Oh, so I can't really fix it. Hold on.
Do you want me to share my screen?
This is confusing. Yeah, hold on. I think I might want someone else to do it. So.
I can share my screen.
Yeah, please. It's so confusing.
Presentations.
Congratulations, everybody. We're finished. You can have a good sleep after this. Hope if anyone's in UNIS, we have a long weekend coming up. So 2 days break for us. Let's go. And anyone in any other schools, I pray for you to get a break soon as well.
Yeah, admin.
Head chair, continue.
So the first superlative goes to India for being the most inclusive lobbyist. Clapping is in order for India. He has actively discussed with his members in order to draft a successful resolution. Next, we have Brazil. The award name is on the spot for giving the most and best POIs during the whole conference. We have Belarus for being the most diplomatic delegate, accurately representing his country's stance throughout the debate. Next, we have most informed delegate is Russia for the most number of speeches as well as deep understanding of the issue, also approved by Mr. Anagnost. Next, we have Ukraine for objecting motion to move the previous question throughout the whole debate. And we have Germany as our late bloomer for actively engaging in the later part of the debate. And China for being the best listener throughout the whole conference. We also have Sweetest Voice by United States of America. Yeah, but I don't think he's in the call right now. So,
Applause anyways.
yeah. And lastly, we have France for being the most improved delegate throughout the conference. And of course, we have to thank our admin for being very organized and prepared for the conference. The conference wouldn't have run smoothly without you. And now, admin can take over here.
No. I've gotten notice from French, which sent to everyone, complaining about Yoda. Would you like to say why that is? Response here? Oh, you're here.
No, I don't have any
Any objections? Any objections? Oh, okay. So the last slide is pertaining to the chairs. And apparently they want to boost their ego and they want to see who who do you guys think is the best chair for today? Would you like to do as a poll or do you want to use your reactions?
We can probably just do reactions.
Reactions? Okay. Let's do
check for head chair, cross for deputy chair, raise hand for procedure chair.
Yeah.
And I don't believe the chairs have been concerned with these voting procedures between who's the best chair is. So delegates just vote.
Yeah. Feel free to put your reactions.
And it's okay.
There's zero. That's kinda
It's okay with whoever you vote.
Say the reactions again.
So check for head chair and cross for deputy chair and raise hand for procedure chair.
Okay, poll is too confusing, so I'm not doing poll.
Thank you, delegates, for your honest voting.
All right, we have 5 for head chair. Wait, what? Wait, what's who's who?
3 for head chair, and then
3 for head
5
chair,
for
5
deputy
for
chair,
deputy,
and 1 for procedure chair.
1 for the sad procedural chair.
Sad,
Thank you,
sad.
delegate.
Procedural
Thank
chair, I'm
you.
on your side. I'm on all
Yay.
of us sides.
Thank you,
Thank
delegates, for
you.
today. Even though the last resolution was done so quickly, thank you guys, delegates, for holding on until the end, and thank you guys, delegates, for contributing so much throughout this whole entire delegates. It must have been a hard debate because there were some rough debaters here. No matter how you felt until the end, I hope this was a fruitful experience for everybody. Chairs, do you want to say anything else about this?
I just want to thank everyone for their hard work preparing for the conference and also during the conference. And since we only have about 5 minutes left, if any delegates want to share their social medias, perhaps through the chat, they can do that. Yeah.
It's such an MUN thing. Oh my god.
There
This
was
is such a
also
thing.
a method of changing your name to your social media,
What?
which was another method, and then you screenshot the whole entire
Oh.
screen. That was an interesting method.
Sure. No, that sounds fun. Okay, guys, do you remember how to rename yourself?
The 3
Rename to
dots
any social
been,
media you're okay sharing.
Oh, which social media though? There's like Instagram.
Whichever you want. Yeah, whichever
Yeah,
you
just
want to
whichever.
engage people or just have more followers on. I don't know. Your decision. Yeah, make sure to specify as well.
Deputy Chair, would you want
Our
to change your name?
directors, feel free to do so as well, Mr. Garner, Ms. Human Resources, anyone who's in the chat. Oh, are you guys okay with me sharing this? Because we're supposed to make like screenshots, so.
Yes, that's fine.
I got you.
But then, India, do you not want to show your social media?
Don't use social media.
Respect.
And Ukraine with long live Ukraine. Ukraine being Ukraine.
All right,
Thank you.
chairs, well, what's the update? How are you finishing today? Because we're not supposed to take anyone to buses or anything. Which
Yeah,
is what I'm
we're
used to.
supposed to finish at 4 o'clock, and there is the leadership meeting, so the final finale.
Oh wait, isn't there a closing speech? Hold on.
Yes, there's a closing ceremony.
Yes, where's that? What's that?
I'm not precisely aware of the links. Actually, are you aware of the links?
Oh yeah, I can share that to anyone who can share screen.
It's on the
Give
website.
it to procedural.
Procedural share screen.
And can you also check if you can hear the sound?
Oh, we cannot hear the sound.
What? I heard it for a second. Can you keep playing it? No, okay, never mind.
We cannot hear the sound.
Oh yeah, I don't think I can hear the audio. I think when you share, you have to click the share my sound. Deputy, are you okay taking over? Because that's what you did last time as well.
Yeah, I don't think the share my sound is working.
Okay.
Oh, where is it? Where is the video?
It's in the chat. The link
Oh,
to
it is in the chat.
finale video.
Wait, it is in the chat? Do you mean the presentation?
No, the drive. So it's this video. Oh wait. I'll send it to everybody in the chat.
Thanks. Can you hear the sound?
Yes.
Yes.
We would like to congratulate all of you for such a successful conference, as well as the busy preparation that took place in the weeks prior to the conference.
We would like to thank our UNIS MUN directors, Mr. Stefan Anagnost and Mr. Alvaro Barania, the MUN leadership team, and the UNIS administration team, all of whom have put in huge amounts of time and effort into the preparation for this conference.
Furthermore, we want to thank all MUN participants for making this conference possible. See you in November 2022 conference.
Thank you, everyone. Everyone is now dismissed.
Let's do a round of applause. You'll probably never see me again, but bye.
Hello, guys. Bye, Adamant. Bye, everybody.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Hami, I think we have to join the leadership meeting.
Yeah. I also have to be the last one ending the call anyways. Wait, where's the leadership meeting?
The Singapore team can go, right?
Yeah, of course. Of course.
Okay.
Bye. Thank you, Chair.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Adamant.
guys.
Bye, Head Chair.
Hi, Ms.
Yeah.
Ms.
Hello.
Zhang. We will now join leadership meeting, so I think
Yeah,
we'll see you
where's
there.
that? Okay. Goodbye.